Hey everyone, Justin Conroy, Financial Dad here. So a few weeks ago I published a video where I talked about how to make a very simple beginner's budget. And in this video, I want to expand on that example and show you how to budget like the pros. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time because in this video, I'm going to show you my process and methodology for budgeting my own money, which has served me for well over 10 years. Using this method, I'm usually able to predict where I will be financially in the next year, within about a 5 to 7% margin of error. So I think it's a really powerful tool and I want to share it with you guys so that you can know how to track your spending and accurately forecast your money for the future. So by the end of this video, you'll hopefully understand the method and how to apply it to your own financial situation. We're going to get a bit heavy into the spreadsheeting here, but bear with me because I think it'll be worth it. So with that, do me a big favor and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Let's go ahead and move over to my computer and let's get this started. So what you're looking at here is the simple budget spreadsheet that we put together in my last budgeting video. So if you saw that video, you'll recognize this sheet. The only thing that I've changed so far is the dates across the top, which of course don't really matter, but these dates fit the example I have a little bit better. So just to recap for everybody, what we're looking at is a very simple budget. At the top, we've got the initial value in our bank account, and that's being added to the cash flow value here, which brings us to the cumulative cash that we have. So we can forecast out over 6 months where our cash will be if we follow this plan. Cash flow is of course being calculated by our total income minus our total expenses. In this case, it's $230. Our total income is being calculated each month from our paycheck, which is $3,500 a month, and our tutorials, we're pretending this is a teacher, so they're making extra money on the side, and that gives us our $3,600 per month. Our total expenses are being calculated by these subcategories here, and I won't get into the details here for the recap, but you kind of get the idea. We've planned some expenses in each category for the next 6 months to help us understand where we will be so that we can have a simple budget. This is a simple budget, and this is what I want to build off of today. The way that I want to expand on this budget is by bringing in some real data. Now, of course, for the example, I've created some fake data to use, but what we want to do is see if our forecast has met reality. We want to see if, after we made this plan, did we actually follow the budget? And if we didn't follow the budget, was there a good reason for it? And should we update our forecasts for the future because maybe we screwed up the budget in the first place? Because I said in the last video, your first budget ever will probably be wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need to be able to look at the data that we've collected to make sure that we are moving forward with more accurate numbers. So the first thing I'm going to do in this spreadsheet is bring in the fake data that I've generated to serve as our 3 months of expenses for the months of May, June, and July. So let me go ahead and do that now. So the first thing I need to do is make a new sheet. So I'm going to go down here to the plus sign. We're in Google Sheets. I'm going to add a sheet. I'm going to relabel it to be expenses. And I'm going to grab the data that I have on my other sheet on my other screen and paste it in here. Now the first thing we need to do in order to make this all work is we need to categorize our expenses. Now I won't lie to you, this is the most tedious part of this whole methodology, but when you get used to it, when you get some practice in, it really doesn't take this long. It takes me about 2 hours per month to do my entire budget and forecast my money out for the next 12 months with a 5 to 7% margin of error. So it's well worth it, in my opinion, to spend 2 hours per month, but it'll probably take you a little bit longer the first time you ever do it. So just be prepared for that. But we need to go through here and categorize our expenses, and our categories need to match the text that we are using over here in our categories here on our main sheet. So I kind of already know what these things are, so we can basically go over here and say, well, Audible here for $238, that was entertainment. For an example, we have another Audible there. Barbecue restaurant was fast food, etc. Buffalo Wild Wings, those are all fast food, Burger King, you get the idea. Amazon purchases, again, it's a bit tedious, but you're gonna have to log into Amazon, figure out what these purchases are, categorize them here. For sake of not having a 2-hour long video, I've of course got the categories already mapped out on my other screen, so I'm just gonna paste them here, and that's what we need, okay? So again, that's gonna take you a lot longer in person, first time you ever do this, but this is what we need. We have now categorized our expenses all the way down the line, and we know what these expenses are. So now we know where these things need to fit. So for example, where I'm going with this is a home repair in the month of June needs to show up right here. Home repair in the month of June. That's June, I promise, June. Okay, so we need to sum up all the home repairs in June and put them in that cell right there. And so on and so forth for every other cell here. Now we can do that very simply with a formula. The next part of the video will get a bit detailed in the formula. I think it is important to show, so I'll put a timestamp here showing when we get back into it without all the formulas, but if you want to stick around for the formula, here we go. So the way I'm going to do this is with a sum product formula. Now the sum product formula is an array formula, and it will allow us to use multiple criteria and sum up all the numbers as an aggregate in each of these cells. So we actually have three criteria I'm going to use. The first criteria, of course, is the expense category. So we need the expense category here to match the expense category here on all of these rows. And we also need the date to match, but we don't need the exact date to match. We actually just need the year and the month to match. If we try to do anything else, it's not going to work well. And actually, for this particular example, we don't have to worry about the year, but I like to worry about the year because I want this to be for 12 months. And May, of course, is going to go into 2021. So we want to know when the year matches, when the month matches, and when the category matches, sum up all those numbers and plop them into that cell. So let's do that right here for our car insurance in May. I'm going to use a sum product, and I'm going to do a rough sketch here of the formula and go back and clean it up in just a minute. So we want sum product of the car insurance, where the car insurance equals the category on all of those rows. Okay, and I'm going to lock that in with F4. Okay, so that's the first criteria. Now I'm going to push comma and do another criteria. I want the month of our month here, and I want that to equal the month of all of my billing dates up here. Okay, I'm going to grab all those, lock it in with F4, close the parentheses, and push the comma. Now I want to do the same thing with the year. The year of our date here equals the year of our date on the billing month right here. Lock that in with F4, close the parentheses, comma. Now at that point, all we've really done is created three separate arrays of ones and zeros, and so every time something is true, we're going to get an array of ones or zeros and ones and zeros. We're going to try to product all that up with the sum product formula. So the only way we're ever going to get a number is if we have 1, 1, 1, and then what we're going for here is the transaction value. Lock that in, close it. Okay, so hopefully you were able to follow that. We're only going to match and actually get numbers when our category matches, our year matches, and our month matches. And then if that happens, we're going to do 1 times 1 times 1 times the transaction value, and it will pull it all into that cell. So I'm going to push enter, and we get negative 77. Now, just to double check, if we go to our expenses and go back to the top and push filter here, and go to our car insurance, and we look in the month of May, we had negative 77.22, so we know we have done it correct. So now all I've got to do is go over here and clean up my formula so that we can copy this across. Now, I didn't lock in the proper cells the first time, so we're going to lock the C14 so that it's locked on column C, because that's where our category is. And then I need to lock the row here, so that'll be row 5. I'm going to lock that in with F4, and then lock that in with F4 up here. That locks the row 5, locks the column C. That allows us to copy this across. Push enter. We still have 77. Paste it across. Oop. Paste it across. There you go. And you can see that our numbers have all brought themselves across the way we expect. We've got dates down here at 158, 101, 120, 110, 106. You can see that this is working. And I guarantee you, if you look at the expenses and double check the math, it all works out fine. Now, one thing we've broken by bringing this in is the fact that our original cash flow spreadsheet took into account the fact that expenses were assumed to be positive. But in our transactions, as you can see, let me unfilter this, you can see that our transactions are all negative, okay, except for obviously the income transactions, which, by the way, we need to paste those here, okay? Now, what we want to do is fix our cash flow equation because we had income minus expenses, assuming that expenses would be positive, but actually they're already negative, so we're just going to add those together, fix our cash flow, and you can see that we are not doing so great in our first 3 months of real data. Now you can also see that we have one more thing to clean up because our forecasts are still assuming expenses are positive. So let's go ahead and multiply each of these times -1. We'll copy that over, copy this down, and paste all that right there. And then we will just simply copy that and paste the values, and we have now fixed our issue, and we can see that our cash flow looks a lot better, but again, we're still not doing so good in our first months. So now that we've got our formula in place, if you're just joining us again, welcome back. What we've done is we've brought in all the expenses from the other sheet. We've aggregated everything into each of these cells. You can see that we are looking at real data now for all of our transactions and forecasts at the front. We've cleaned up the equations for cash flow, and we've cleaned up some of the data down here for our forecasts. Now the last thing I want to do is change the color of these cells right here, because we have now input a formula, and we want to highlight the fact that those are different. Okay, those are real data, and it's really important that visually we see that the stuff we now have in green is real, and the stuff we have in white is our forecast. This is a very important distinction. So there's one more thing that I want to do to make this sheet visually help us understand what's going on. I want to make all negative numbers and zeros to be red, because zeros and negative numbers when it comes to money are not a good thing. And we want our brains to trigger in a certain way to make sure that we realize that that's a bad thing. Whether you know it or not, red is kind of a bad color in your mind. You know, it's what your teachers always marked up your tests in when you were a kid. And so red stands out in your head, whether you know it or not. So I want to change all the formats on these numbers very quickly here to make sure that we know that they are bad when they are bad. So what I'm going to do is highlight all of my financial numbers here. Okay, we only have a few. It's a relatively simple example. What I want to do is go to Format and go to Number and go to Accounting, and that'll first put dollar signs and parentheses and more decimal places. And then I want to do an additional formatting where I go to Custom Format, Custom Number Format, and I want to put a red flag in front of the negative numbers and a red flag in front of the zeros. So that way all of my negative numbers show up as red and all my zeros show up as red. Now, right away you can see that that already looks bad, and that is a good thing. We want our budget to highlight when there's problems. We can immediately see we had a major problem here in June. We can immediately see that our expenses are negative. They're bad. We don't like expenses, but we like income. Income is in the black text there. This is all really good stuff. So visually, we now have a really good sheet to use, and we only have one more step to make this thing even better and start forecasting money out to the far future. So how are we going to do that? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to now use the real data that we have in the spreadsheet that we pulled in for 3 months. We pulled in 3 months of data, and we want to use that and compare with our forecasts. And if there is a situation where it makes sense that we just made a mistake, we made a bad forecast, we want to update our forecast so we can see where our numbers really are. Because we predicted in our original budget we were going to be $230 with positive cash flow every month, but actually, as it turns out, we have only, let's do an average here, we've only averaged over the last 3 months $69 of positive cash flow in those 3 months. So we're not doing as good as we thought we were going to be doing. So how can we adjust our budget for the future? Well, what I like to do is add a couple of columns here. So what I'm going to do is add 3 columns here, and just to make it easier on the eyes, I normally don't do this for myself, but for the video here, we'll make it easy on the eyes, and we will take, these cells don't really matter, we will take an average of those 3 numbers there. We'll paste that down all the way across, and this way we can see what our average numbers have been for the past 3 months. And that way we can then use our forecast to compare, okay? So just to do a few on camera, and then I'll do the rest maybe in a time lapse or something. If you look down, we estimated that our income would be $3,500 per month, but actually it's only been $34,2388 per month. So it's probably a better idea to say, well, maybe our income is only about $34,2388. Let's say that's a paycheck that's really consistent. Paste that across and we can update our forecast. You can see our average here is already going down just a little bit because we've adjusted our income. We also thought we were only going to be making $100 a month for tutorials, but actually we've been making an average of $300 a month. Now, I would actually say that this is extra income and it's not guaranteed, so you may not want to budget the whole thing. I would not recommend typing in $300 here, but you could probably say that, as this teacher is doing tutorials, she's made a minimum of $280 in her middle month there, month of June. You could probably say we're going to get at least $250 per month in tutorial money, and that feels a little bit better, and that's reasonable. So we can go with that, okay? Now let's look at some of the expenses. We, on average, have been spending $77 a month on car insurance. We budgeted $80. I think that's good. We budgeted $80, did an average of $77. We're looking good. Car maintenance, we actually haven't spent any money at all. But we do expect that $30 per month or so, we're going to have, broken headlights, broken taillights, maybe our windshield wipers need to be replaced. So we do budget for something to go wrong. I'm going to leave that in because it's a safe bet that something is going to go wrong with a car, something cheap, $30 a month on average, and we're going to have to deal with that, okay? It's not going to happen every month, but we want to budget that in to make sure that we are accounting for those things, okay? Car payments. We expected we averaged 213, we expected 220, so we could probably bring that down. That's probably a very consistent payment that we can bring down, 213.44, and you get the idea. So what we're doing here is we're going through each line, we're comparing our average spend over the last 3 months, and we're comparing what we forecasted it to be. Let's pick a big one here. We expected we were going to spend $200 a month on dates, but we've only averaged $88 a month. Maybe we're not going on as many dates as we thought we were. So let's bring that number down. That's a good one. Let's bring it down to $100. $100 a month on dates is a good number. We don't need to go any more overboard than that. Electricity, you can see in our original budget, we forgot to budget altogether. Whoops. We need to plug that in. And we can see that we're averaging about $112 a month. So negative 112, 17. That's a good average. Let's go for it. So I'm going to do the rest over a quick time lapse and see where we are, and I'll bring you back at the very end. Okay, so I've wrapped up the analysis of our expenses. Again, I compared average in the last 3 months to what we forecasted, and I've now adjusted our forecast based on some of our averages. And you can see we have a problem. We thought we were going to be doing better, but we have not been doing better. We have not been doing very good. We originally thought we were going to have $230-ish of positive cash flow. Actually, based on our current spending, it looks like we're averaging negative $90 per month in cash flow, which means we are living above our means, okay? So what do you do at this point? I talked about this in the last video, but at this point you go through this list one more time and you say, what can I reduce, okay? So maybe something like electricity is not something you can really reduce. You're going to be using that. That's an essential expense. It kind of is what it is. You can't really control it too much. Obviously there's some things you can do to reduce a little bit, but that's really not where we want to focus. We want to focus on the extraneous things. So let's go down to, for example, something I noticed on here that we didn't plan for but has shown up quite a bit is fast food. We did not have any budget for fast food, but we are spending an average of $152 a month on fast food. That is a lot of money. So if we say we're not going to eat fast food at all, that's honestly, you can tell we're in that habit. That's not a reasonable thing. Why don't we just say we're going to cut our fast food by a good chunk, and maybe we're only going to get fast food a couple of times per month. It's better for our health anyway. Maybe we do $40 a month on fast food instead of $150. And now we need to consciously be aware of that and not do that in our normal everyday lives. Gasoline was another big one. We budgeted much less in gasoline, but it turned out to be a much higher number. Probably not too much we can do about that. That's probably us just going back and forth to work. But if you are doing this and you know, oh man, I spent too much in gas, I was going to my friend's house too much, traveling, to another state too much, whatever the case may be, maybe you can think to yourself, I can reduce my gas bill by driving less. That's totally a possibility. Groceries, $540 a month on groceries is a little bit high. We could probably get that down if we really tried. This person is probably trying to buy name brand stuff, all kinds of crazy stuff at the grocery store. So we can probably be a little bit more frugal in our expenses at the grocery store. Bring that down to about $430 a month. And I'll leave it there. We're probably already doing good. We're at $130 a month in positive cash flow, but this is the point. We make a budget, we make a plan, and then we check with real data to see how we did against that plan. And then we check and adjust and check and adjust and check and adjust every single month. That is the methodology. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and using this method, again, I mentioned before, I'm now able to forecast my money out 12 months with 5 to 7% margin of error. It takes practice. You're not going to get it right the first time, but if you do this every month, you bring in your expenses from your bank account, your credit cards, put them in the spreadsheet, take your averages, compare with your spending, you will learn your spending habits, and by knowing your spending habits, you'll be able to change your spending habits, and that's where the real power comes from. But hey, if you made it this far in the video and found some sort of value in it, whether it be entertainment or education, be sure and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Smashing that like button lets YouTube know that you enjoyed this content, and they use that data to help decide whether or not they should push this video to more people, so it really does help this channel grow. Also, I post new videos about wealth building, money management, and personal finance every week, so be sure and subscribe down below for more content if you haven't already. But listen, when it comes to budgeting, hopefully you've seen and now understand how to make it so that you can save money every month, so that you can have a positive cash flow every month. But this is just the beginning. How do you know if you're actually saving enough money? Well, if you've never sat down and made a 10-year plan for your savings, I would guess that you aren't saving nearly enough money. So be sure and check out the video on the screen right now, because in that video, I show you my method for predicting your needed savings over your whole life, and chances are you aren't saving nearly enough. Thanks for watching.